Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Central Library of Sonoma County Library today. We are so excited to bring this opportunity to the students, the patrons, the community for this ARIS contact. ARIS. ARIS stands for Amateur Radio on the International Space Station. And Sonoma County Library was chosen as one of 14 locations across the United States to make contact with the space station through ham radio this year. How did this all happen, you ask? Back in November of last year, Daryl Paul of Sonoma County Radio Amateurs, hi Daryl.
Hi.
Daryl approached us to share this opportunity. A team of library staff, including children's librarian John Postner from the Cloverdale Library, hi John. The team of people wrote the proposal for the library to participate, and in February we learned that we were chosen as one of the ARIS sites. We connected with Santa Rosa Middle School and 8th grade science teacher Amy Katz. Where'd she go? I lost her. Where'd she go? Where are you, Amy?
She's right outside the door.
Oh, okay. Well, Amy Katz, to include her students in this program. We then partnered with Robert Ferguson Observatory. Hi, Robert Ferguson Observatory, and Christine and Nancy and other friends to help us coordinate a series of events across the county leading up to the ARIS contact. And then we hosted an Out of This World art contest to get kids sharing their creativity and thinking about space with the prompt, imagine you are looking out the window of the International Space Station, what do you think you would see? And we invite you to look at the winners along the wall here after the contest. So I really would just like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who helped us make this happen. First, I want to recognize our library commissioner who's here today, Barbara McKenzie. Thank you for your dedication to helping the library to reach the stars. Thank you to our library director, Ann Hammond, for supporting this project. I want to thank our library IT department, especially Bridget and Graham. For helping us with the tech, and then also our library graphics department for providing great visuals for this whole Most of all, I want to thank those partners. We could not have been here today without, with this amazing opportunity, without your help. The Sonoma County Radio Amateurs, the Robert Ferguson Observatory, and Santa Rosa Middle School. Your support and willingness to work with us has made this a success. I'd like to thank also our ARIS mentor, Norm Thorne. who has been helping us through the process. Lots of technical assistance, lots of just kind of telling us what to do. And then last of all, I'd like to thank Megan Backus, who's the events coordinator for the Sonoma Library, and she really pulled all of this together with our meetings. And she kept us organized the whole time. So there are 10 8th grade students from Santa Rosa Middle School who are seated along the wall here. They will be introduced specifically at the end of the contact, but just for time, we're not going to do that right now, but they have been working hard in their classrooms to come up with great questions to interview the astronaut. So that's my kind of thanks to everybody. I now have the pleasure of introducing our. I now have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker today. We have a parent, a space enthusiast, and a great contributor to our community. We have Councilwoman Victoria Fleming of the Santa Rosa City Council, who is going to give some remarks today. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Who's excited? Is it still morning? No? Good afternoon. Listen, what is more exciting than libraries, than space, than ham radio, than students and schools? I don't know what to say. I'm so honored to be here with you guys today. But did I miss something? At any rate, I want to talk a little bit about the role that space and curiosity play in the development and also our own mental health and growth as we go through life. When I was a young person, I became interested in politics. I wasn't exactly sure why, and I asked a lot of questions. I had no sense that one day I would get to have this awesome opportunity of getting to watch the young people call astronauts in actual outer space. And so what my point is there is this, is that curiosity is the foundation of our growth both as young people and as adults. In outer space, these folks are trying to find things out, not necessarily for a specific application. In some cases, yes. But the curiosity that we bring to life often takes us in places that we could not have imagined. And I encourage you to find things that you're passionate about and continue to ask questions, no matter how much it annoys your parents or your teachers or anybody else around you. Keep asking why, because that will sustain you. The second thing is that it will lead you places, as I've said, that you cannot possibly imagine. And by that, I mean that you could become an astronaut or a politician or something that you don't even know right now. So don't say that you have a plan and work specifically for that. Say that you care about something and keep trying to learn as much as you can about it. That will sustain you, because we won't all reach our goal to get into space, but we will get somewhere if we try to get to space. The other thing I wanted to say is this. When you do get somewhere, and I believe that you will, it is our truest responsibility to look behind us at the person who is not somewhere yet, somebody who might be struggling, might have a difficult home life, might not be sure what they're passionate about yet, and lend a hand. It is a reflection of our greatest aspirations as a democracy, as young people, as people growing, to be helpful and compassionate towards those who have less than us or those who are further behind us on the path. I'm so honored to be here today. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so proud of the library, of Eric, of the whole program, and so grateful to be able to address you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm Norm Thorne. I'm the mentor for the event, and I want to welcome you all here and hope you enjoy it. But I have a few things to tell you about before we get started. First of all, did you know that the space station is bigger than a football field? You can see the picture of it up here. That all those solar panels and things are bigger than a football field. It flies 250 miles above the Earth, and it's going at 17,500 miles an hour. Now that's faster than 25 times the speed of sound. So it goes going really quick, and that's the reason that we're going to have only about 12 minutes to talk to the space station today. Because they're flying so fast, they'll go over the horizon, and the guys that are tracking it with the ham radio won't be able to see it after that. So it just kind of fade out. So I'd like to show you some of the things we have in the room. First of all, we have a map over here. This is our ground station tracking for the space station. And the ham radio ground station that will be tracking this for us and doing the talking to the space station for us is actually located up here in Greenbelt, Maryland, right about where that dot is. So when this X down here is the space station itself, and you can see which direction it's moving. It's headed right over there. It's going to be a very good pass today. And as soon as this circle around the space station is what's called the footprint. And the footprint is what part of the sky or what part of the ground the space station can see at any one time. So anything beyond that is over the horizon. And as soon as this round blue circle gets up to where it just touches the ground station up there, we'll be able to start talking. And as soon as the other edge of it goes past that, it's going to fade out. So I also have this clock set up to be approximately the time that we'll be starting the contact. So it's counting down to that time. You can also see that down here at the bottom of the map. This is the more official time count down here. Now, let me make sure I don't miss any of the things I need to tell you here. But this is being done by amateur radio operators. Even the astronaut that we're going to be talking to, Nick Hague, has to have an amateur radio license to be able to talk on ham radio. And that's something that many of you can get. We have a gentleman in the back here that will give you information about amateur radio after the meeting, after the event, and they'll be happy to help you out. How many people here are ham radio operators? Raise your hands. We have a number of them in the room. And we have others on the other end of the connection here so that we can talk to them. They will be operating the radios for us today. Oh, let me think.
This is John. I have 1939.
You have 1939. That's interesting.
So we probably should.
Okay, my clock must be off. I have 14 minutes. Thank you, John. So we have a little bit more time to fill than I expected. I was trying to cut out some of this.
Well, actually, Norm, I think it's time to start the formal program, if that's okay.
Okay, let me just let people know that we, hang on one second here. We do have a couple of things coming up after the event. I'd like to show you the ham radio. People are going to be back here. The observatory, Ferguson Observatory is going to be at this table, and they have lots of interesting things to show you about some of the programs that they have. We're also, after the event, stay around in the room because we're going to be showing you videos of what it's like on the space station. How you brush your teeth, how you do various things on the space station. So stick around for a little bit and don't leave. Given that, I'm going to turn you over to John Clute, who's our narrator for today. He will talk you through the event itself. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Norm. This is John Clute, K4SQC, and I'm your amateur radio moderator for today's contest. ERIC, which you've heard mentioned several times here, is actually a consortium of amateur radio and hand volunteers from all over the world. It's sponsored by the American Radio Relay League, ANSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation, Canadian Space Agency, European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, NASA, of course, and Roscom, the Russian Space Agency. So there are a number of agencies involved. With the help of radio amateur volunteers and the crew in the ISS, we should shortly be able to establish contact with the ISS. Right now, it's flying over the Pacific Ocean, and the contact, as you've heard, is going to be done using the Amateur Radio Calibrage Network a series of amateur radio stations all the way around the world that we can use to facilitate these contacts. What I'd like to do right now is have you see a short video courtesy of the ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, which explains the role of amateur radio and what is about to happen. Norm, you want to go ahead and run the video, please?
Hi, my name is Ruth. And my name is Chris. You must be pretty excited to talk directly with astronauts on the International Space Station today. While we're waiting for the space station to come over your portion of the sky, let's talk a little bit about how it's going to happen. Of course, Mission Control is in contact with astronauts all the time, using a big radio with lots of fancy equipment. However, we're going to be using something very different. We're going to use ham or amateur radio to talk directly to the International Space Station. When most people hear the word radio, they think of a music radio station, but it's so much more than that. Radio actually refers to the unseen energy that transmits all sorts of signals using electromagnetic waves. At first, people learned how to send signals like Morse code, and then they discovered you can send so much more, like data, computer signals, and even TV.
Maybe you don't realize it, but you use radio every day. Maybe you watched the TV this morning, or you texted your friends, or maybe even you check social media like Twitter or Instagram.
Let's travel back to space for a minute. Since the beginning of the space age, humans have sent many spacecraft out into the universe. These range from the Hubble Space Telescope orbiting the Earth daily, and the Curiosity rover exploring Mars. We've even sent a long-distance messenger, the Voyager 1, who has traveled outside of our solar system.
Whether it's capturing a great picture of a far-off galaxy or conducting experiments on the space station, radio has to do with all of these. And today, you're going to be using ham radio. Now you might be wondering, what exactly is ham radio?
Amateur or ham radio is a service and a hobby where operators can talk to people around their neighborhoods, their cities, their country, and even around the world. Amateur radio operators require a radio license from the government. They're not that hard to get. I have one. My call sign is KM4LAO.
And mine is KD81EJ. Our call signs are a way of identifying who we are to other operators. This lets everyone know that we have the proper license to use a radio.
As amateur radio operators, or hams as we are often called, we can talk with others about basically whatever we want, often science or some new radio gadget that we are interested in.
Let's focus back to the space station and your contact today. Many of the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the space station are licensed ham radio operators. That's why your operators today can contact. The people here, as well as the astronauts, are licensed to talk to each other, and you are allowed to talk over to the radio.
For our conversation today, we'll need an amateur radio station on the ground, either in this location or somewhere else around the world. We'll also need a radio in the space station.
You can hear the calls coming. This is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, the International Space Station, over.
On the space station, the radio transceiver is connected to an amateur radio antenna mounted on the outside. One of these antennas will be used today during our contact.
For our side of the contact, we need a good-sized antenna, a signal amplifier, something to make our signal stronger, and a rotator for turning our antenna. We have to keep our antenna pointed right at the International Space Station. And remember, it's moving across the sky and fast.
To aim the antenna properly, we need to track the path of the space station exactly. NASA uses complex systems to track the path of the space station and other orbiting objects.
The satellite tracking program we are using works out a complicated set of mathematics to provide the orbital location of the space station, moment by moment as it moves through space. This information is sent to the computer that controls the antenna rotator, which moves the antenna to follow the space station. Maybe some of you have seen or worked with robotics. That's pretty cool stuff. And just like you can program a robot where to go, what to do, and how to get there, you can also program a computer to tell an antenna how to track the space station across the sky?
No, it took a lot of planning to get this contact. Several weeks ago, the ARIS operations team had to figure out when the space station's orbit would pass over this location. Then, they had to talk with the planners at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The cruise time is pretty full, so they were able to find a time that worked for the crew members' schedules. Once they found times that would work both in space and here on the ground, the host organized this contact. And in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing and talking to the astronauts.
Well, it's almost time for your contact. It will be exciting, so good luck with it.
Okay, very good. I hope that was a helpful video. Operator, we do like to record these calls. So operator, if you haven't started recording already, would you please start recording as we continue. As you may have heard, the amateur radio ground station that we were establishing with the ISS is in the Goddard Space Flight Center, Greenbelt, Maryland, call sign K6DUE, operated by Ken McCoy, M3SZX. Thank you for helping us out today, Ken. We have about 6 minutes until contact time, 5 minutes actually. Our contact today is with astronaut Nick Hay, KG5TMZ, who will be using the ISS call sign NA1FF. The ham radio coordinator who you've already met for the event is Norm Thorne, K6EUU. The ISS is currently flying over the Pacific, as you heard, traveling at about 17,500 miles an hour, and it is 250 miles up. Ken, before the contact begins, please tell us about your amateur radio station, who you are, and how you'll handle the conversation. Over to you, Ken.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Norm. I'd like to acknowledge I have Bob, call sign W3IYI, and Tom, call sign M3TJO, also assisting me here at the K6DUE ground station. So we're an amateur radio station, foremost. Our station is near the roof of one building on the campus of Goddard Space Flight Center. We have a set of antennas on the roof that are computer controlled, in that the computer will point the antennas at the space station as it flies over. That helps keep a good RF link. The computer also controls the radio for documentation. And when we make the contact, I will be controlling the push to talk. This is why it's important for everybody to say over. And that lets you know when to switch the radio from transmit to receive. And it's important to also to enunciate well. You did really good with the audio check. So keep that up and make sure you say over. When we start the contact, you'll hear an open squelch with some status, kind of like this. Now I will call the station, ISS. Once we establish contact, I will say, we'll now turn it over to the school. And at that point, the first students should go ahead with their question. The class is about a little over 10 minutes. And at the end, when they face over the horizon, all we hear is static. I think that's about all I have. Back to you, John.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. This is actually going to be, it's always an exciting event to actually talk to the astronauts. You do need to remember that what we're doing on the ISS is an experiment. We are dealing with space, and we can never really tell the result, positive or negative, until the experiment is over. And as you've heard now several times, it's really important to say over at the end of your question. That cues Ken to know when to turn from transmit to receive, from sending your voice to the ISS and hearing the voice of the astronaut coming back. One last reminder would be if everyone could please put their mobile phones and tablets on flight or airplane mode. That way you can still take photographs and videos of the event, but we don't need to worry about telephones ringing and interference with the public address system. It looks like on my clock, we have about a little bit less than a minute and 20 seconds to go until the ISS should be over the horizon. And as Kim said, when he makes that first call, don't be surprised because what you hear is that empty sound. That's just called static as we wait for the ISS to come into range. So I think what I'm going to do now is, as the ISS is approaching, I'm going to turn it back to the K6CUE and 10 in Maryland. So it's all yours, and good luck with the contest.
All right, well, thank you. We currently are looking at 1 minute and 10 seconds to acquisition signal. So typically, we hear them just about right on time. Typically have a pretty strong signal, so we'll kind of wait it out here. We'll call a little bit early just to make sure we maximize the pass for everybody. All right, our station is automatically now moving the antennas into position. Anyone SS to K6CUE, copy a little bit weak, try and get over.
K6CUE, this is anyone as I copied you, a little scratchy, kind of like we were getting a stronger signal.
You're 5 by 5 right now, so we'll hand over to the school. School, go ahead with your question.
Okay, here's the first question.
Were you scared the first time you went into space over?
Scared is the right word. You're definitely full of emotion. You've been training for it for so long, excited to go, and you want to do really well. And so I think nervous is the right word. I'm nervous because, I don't want to mess anything up because I've been working so hard to do it perfect, to train so I know how to do it perfect. The other thing you get nervous about is the unknown. Anytime you do anything for the first time, it's a little bit nerve-wracking because you don't know exactly what to expect. But it has exceeded my expectations in every way. Over.
How long have you wanted to be an astronaut? Over.
I wanted to be an astronaut since I was in elementary school. I always was interested in math and science and how things work. And then, combine that with, I look up at the night sky and see all of the stars and just have this urge to explore and go find out, go discover the unknown, which is something that was always inside me. And so I found that passion and I ran with it, and it brought me to where I am today. So,
what was it like riding the rocket into space? Over.
it was like a 9-minute roller coaster ride that is more up and down and shaky side to side than anything I've ever been on in terms of roller coasters. It was exhilarating. The first few minutes just pressed you into your seat, and it was smooth. And then as we got rid of empty stages and continued to accelerate to orbital speed, it became a little bit more rumbly and vibrations built up. And then all of a sudden, the engine stopped. We were in orbit, and everything went quiet, and we were just floating forward.
What is a typical day like on the ISS for you? Over.
Yeah, typical day, it's all on one day. So I'll wake up at 6 a.m. and then we start work at 7:30. So it gives me a little bit of time to have breakfast and get ready for the day. And then we work from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 in the evening. And then I've got a few hours to take care of personal business and have some dinner, and then it's time for bed so I can get my 8.5 hours of sleep. Every day is a little bit different. We do different activities, different experiments, different maintenance activities each day. But the one constant is we do 2.5 hours of exercise every day so that we can stay in shape without having gravity.
When in zero gravity, do you ever get motion sickness? Over.
Yeah, motion sickness is pretty common, and especially in the first couple days that you're out here until your body adjusts, because your inner ear wants to know which way is down. And when you're floating around in microgravity, it can't determine which way is down, so you always kind of feel dizzy, and that leads to motion sickness. Some people get motion sick, some people don't. And it's a challenge for adapting to this new environment. Over.
Do you have a clock keeping time from Earth, or do you have your own time in space? Over.
You know, we have one time that synchronizes, and we have to pick one time somewhere on the Earth. So we pick Greenwich Mean Time, so the same time as it is in London. And we have to pick one time because we have control centers all over the globe. We've got a control center in Houston. We've got a control center in Huntsville, Alabama. There's one in Montreal, Canada. We've got control centers overseas in Japan, in Germany, in Russia. And so to keep everyone in sync, we all operate on Greenwich Mean Time. Over.
What happens if there is a leak in the space station? Over.
You know, a leak in the space station is a serious issue. It's one of the three major emergencies that we train for all the time. And so what we do is we go, the first thing we do is we find everybody and make sure we've got them. And then we go to our employees spacecraft that brought us up, and we make sure that the leak isn't there. And then once we've done that, then we start slowly working through the space station, trying to find where that leak's at, so that we can fix it with a patch. Over.
What are some do's and don'ts in the space station? Over.
Yeah, I love this question. This question is this is the first time I've got this question on orbit. And I gotta say, it's the same do's and don'ts that you have in your house. Being a good, brother or sister or just somebody that's, a great friend. Being up here, we're living on orbit. There's 6 of us living in a small space. And so all the do's and don'ts really revolve around taking care of your friends and looking to help out for them and picking up after yourself and doing the things that you're supposed to do and being dependable. All those things that you've been learning your whole life, those same things are critical up here. Over.
Does being in space change you mentally? If yes, in what ways? Over.
Yeah, there's a couple different dimensions that you change. So the first one is just how you process your environment around you. I mentioned that you always want to know which way is down, and so when you try to navigate, when you can't determine down with your inner ear, you can get lost pretty easily, even in a small place like the space station. And so it takes your mind time to adapt to not having gravity tell you which way is down. And the other big way that you change is just looking out on the Earth. You get a I had a big change in my perspective about where I sit in the world, where I sit in the universe, and what the Earth is, really all about and where it fits in the universe. And that change was in, perspective. Over.
Have you seen any major visible changes on Earth from space? Over.
I see seasonal changes for sure. I've been up here for a while now, so I've seen the snow accumulate in the Andes Mountains in South America during the winter. I've also seen some man-made changes, and you may have seen in the news recently the fires in South America. I can tell you that when we fly over South America, it's very visible to see those fires and to see the clearing of the rainforest. So yes, you can see those changes. Over.
How long have you lived on the ISS? Over.
I've been up here for over 200 days, and tomorrow I hop in my spacecraft and I get ready to land. I land on Thursday morning. Over.
What job did you have before going into space? Over.
Yeah, so I still have that job. I'm an Air Force colonel, so I served in the Air Force for over 20 years, and I was a flight test engineer. So I flew in fighter jets, testing out new systems for them, and the new aircraft, trying to make sure that they did what we wanted them to do. Over.
Do you worry about meters or space junks hitting the station over?
Absolutely, and I mentioned the airport, well, we have a massive network of people on the ground, and it's predominantly the airport that is looking for all this debris, and if it's gonna come close to us, they let us know so that we can move the space station out of the way. Colliding with something in space is it's pretty serious. Things are traveling really fast up here. We're going 25 times the speed of sound. And so, if we hit something, it doesn't have to be very big to cause a lot of damage. Over.
How intensely did you train to become an astronaut? Over.
Just for this specific mission, I trained for 2 years. To be an astronaut, when I first was selected, it was, from that time to the time I flew was 6 years of pretty much non-stop training. But in reality, you train your whole life. Through your life experiences and the things that you study and work at before you become an astronaut, you bring all that with you. And so it's a lifetime ambition. Over.
What is the strangest thing you have ever seen while in space? Over.
There's so many interesting things. One of I think the cool and kind of eerie is when you see the northern lights. It's totally completely dark outside, and on the horizon you can see these kind of green ghosts dancing on the horizon. These ribbons that are almost see-through, just moving slowly along the horizon as you fly by. It's an amazing sight.
Is it scary to see natural disasters from space? Over.
Yeah, we had a chance to witness a Category 5 hurricane from here while that came to the U.S. And from up here, it looks completely different. You can see the whole hurricane, but it doesn't even look like it's moving. But you definitely know the power and the strength that's in something like that, and you know that the people on the ground are going to be subject to it. So you appreciate it in a slightly different way, but you can still see the immense power behind it. Over.
What is it like to take a shower in space? Over.
Everything floats. So trying to take a shower, essentially I take a towel and I put water and soap into the towel, and then I take a sponge bath. And even then,
It seems like he's fading out. I think we're done.
That's the end of the contract.
Okay, thank you very much. Everybody, did you enjoy that? John, I think you have a few more things to say.
Good job, everyone. Excellent job. Very well done. Ladies and gentlemen, Sonoma County Library, Eric came on the International Space Station, talking using the Goddard Amateur Radio Club Station, K6DUE, operated by Ken McCoy and his team, and moderated by myself, John Clute. Let's show our thanks to Ken and the K6DUE team for the hard work they did leading up to and including today. On behalf of all the international volunteer teams of the air, including the groups we've listed, ANSAT, ARRL, Canadian Space Agency, European Space Agency, Japanese Space Agency, NASA, and Roscosmos. This is John, amateur radio operator, K-Force SQC, sending my greetings to all of you in traditional amateur radio terms. 7-3, best wishes, and great contact. Thanks for being here. Operator, you can stop recording, please. Norton, back to you, and I'm going to terminate the telephone portion of the call. Thanks to everybody.
So that concludes our contact with astronaut Nick A. I'd like to thank everyone here in this room for coming today, but I'd especially like to thank our student interviewers from Santa Rosa Middle School. If you guys will stand up and just walk closer to me. We have Gabe, Derek, Dolly, Cassidy, Macy, Dion, Frida, Lily, Logan, and Madison. Thank you so much.
Okay, and as I mentioned before, stick around, we're going to be showing some videos of life on the space station. And we have people in the back from both the ham radio group and the observatory to give you some information about their programs. I'd also like to thank Bob Koke, my co-mentor on this, and he's helped out a lot. Thank you, everybody.